Hey everybody, welcome to ThaxCast. As always, my name is Terrell, and I'm joined today by my friend Alex Enterline.
How's it going?
We want to talk to you a little bit about some of the stuff we saw out of E3. First, we wanted to address the Xbox One X and its $500 price tag.
Yeah, I think, I was a little bit surprised with the reaction. I think we both were. And it could be, we're just, we're not in the gaming industry really at all. And, I saw a lot of, not necessarily negative reactions. There's a few, but a lot of, I guess, disappointment would be the best way to phrase it.
I think it was a failure of expectations around a lot of people saw the price of the PlayStation 4 Pro and then wanted to gauge their pricing expectations on that before they knew really what all was going to be included in this hardware, how customized it was going to be specifically for this console build. And so they already had that price in mind before we started even talking about memory and graphics card.
And people really early on, and part of this could lend itself, I've heard other people say this before, but part of it could be on Microsoft for announcing Scorpio so early with so few details.
That's very true.
When you do that, and it's not just with the Scorpio or, the One X, it's going to take me forever to get away from saying that. When you announce stuff so early, people are going to build their own expectations. And I think people got that $399 price point. Initially it was hey, wouldn't it be cool if, they matched the price of the Pro or this or that before they really had a chance to think it through and kind of temper their expectations. And just over time, that becomes real. So in everybody's mind, or at least in my opinion, a lot of people's minds, that was a realistic ask. And it was, crazy for Microsoft to do anything beyond $399. But, from the beginning, Phil Spencer had, in my opinion, set expectations accordingly. He had continuously said, it's a premium product, it'll be priced accordingly. I know people are saying, if Microsoft wants to win the console war, this isn't the way to do it. This isn't a way to get an Xbox One X into every person's household. And going back to just expectations of what Phil Spencer said, that's never what they claimed they wanted to do.
That's a good point. However, I think that Phil Spencer and the Xbox marketing team kind of failed on that, in that you didn't really have a whole lot of follow-up to that statement. They said that kind of right up front, but over the last 6 to 8 months, that really hasn't been any of the talk. The talk has all just been, hey, look at this great hardware. It hasn't been, this still may not be for everybody. That really hasn't been said since the previous E3. And I think that was possibly a little bit of a fail on them when setting that expectation.
Yeah, they definitely focused more on that. They didn't focus as much on, the group and who it was for. But I guess for me, at the end of the day, I see the value in it. I mean, hardware-wise, spec-wise, I believe it was Digital Foundry did a video.
Yeah,
trying
to look into a fantastic video.
Trying to see how much it would cost to build a comparable PC or as close. Console architecture is all customized. It's kind of hard to compare. It's pretty much apples and oranges, but to get as close to that as you could. And most estimates are coming in at about $1,000. And so to me, half price over what you pay for a PC for a console. It's $100 more than a PS4 Pro. That's true, but it's running, I believe,
40 to 60% better in just about every aspect.
Yeah, it's better. It's beefier, and one of the kickers for me is it can play 4K Blu-rays. It was
major fail on Sony.
It was mind-boggling
for the Pro to not play 4K Blu-ray.
Since that's Sony's technology, when I was watching that reveal, I was kind of excited for the Pro. I thought it was, it was cool that Sony was doing this. But then when I heard it didn't have 4K Blu-ray, I thought that was a typo or someone misspeaking.
Or maybe just they forgot to mention it.
Yeah.
Because it would be assumed.
Yeah.
Or something like that. You're right.
And I couldn't believe it when that's what they actually ended up doing.
Well, and the other thing that you kind of got to a little bit talking about the comparable PC is that not only would it cost about $1,000 to get a PC similar in quality. But when you do that, you also lose a lot of your game library. Now you get some more stuff with Steam, but a lot of your like big AAA titles, some of those may not be available for PC. So you lose a little bit of your game library, and you immediately start slowing your console down with your antivirus and whatever else programs that you're installing on there, because every program likes to take a little bit of startup power, a little bit of background power, and it immediately just starts slowing your experience down.
Well, and that's another talking point that I've seen is people that come out and say, well, okay, you're already spending $500. Why don't you just jump to a high-end gaming PC? And my key responses to that are, one, jumping from $500, oh, you're already spending $500. Well, why don't you just spend $1,000?
Yeah.
That's not, people just throw that out like that's no big deal. And again, while I'm fine with the $500 price tag, that doesn't mean I can just go, dropping money on this, right and left.
And again, we're talking about $1,000 for a moderate replica.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about a high-end gaming PC, you could be talking $2,000 to $3,000 pretty easily.
I was looking up some parts and stuff today, and for right around $2,000, you could build a machine that would do 4K, 60 FPS, ultra settings on pretty much, I think, every game that's out on the market right now. That's $2,000, and I have a pretty decent PC tower at home, and I have to deal with driver issues, updates, programs interrupting games and stuff. And the biggest thing that draws me to console is I get home, I get off work, I don't want to mess with it. I want to hit the power button, I want to launch my game and play. I don't want to load up, Discord or TeamSpeak. I don't want to load up different apps for chat and this and that. I don't want to, I know Steam has almost everything, but depending on the game, I don't want to load up different programs to launch my games. It's all nice, neat, and confined in one easy to access area. And that's a huge deal for me because, again, I just don't have the time to fiddle with that. And I have all the respect in the world for people that want to tinker and get the absolute best performance out of the game. Running some games on ultra widescreen monitors on souped up PCs is amazing. It's just not for me. And when people ask, who is this console for? I think the simplest answer is console gamers, not PC gamers. Console gamers who just want the best experience possible. That's not saying that it's going to outperform high-end PCs, just, shorter load times, better lighting effects, better graphics, maybe some better resolution on some games.
That's one of the bigger parts for me because I don't currently own a 4K TV, and I still really want this. I want to be able to play 4K Blu-rays in the future, sure, but I really look forward to shorter load times, more consistent frame rates so you don't have as many drops and lags and things like that. So I think getting to the point of, like you said, just the best console experience, I really agree with that because, again, I don't have a 4K TV, so some people would say, well, what's the point? Well, the point is I want better performance, I want more consistency in my gaming experience, and that's going to allow me to do it. Plus, when I do upgrade to a 4K TV, I don't feel like I'm behind.
And I was going to say a couple of things as far as the 4K TVs go, is every time I see, different outlets and stuff talking about 4K TVs, I think some people, it's been a while since they've checked on TV prices. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a sliding scale. There's 4K TVs you could drop $7-8 on easy. However, you can find 50, 60-inch 4Ks for $500 on the right deal. They might not be the best 4K TVs. They might not have HDR or, this feature or that feature. But they've really fallen in price. They are very affordable, and they're so close in price to their 1080p counterparts. If your TV does go out, I don't understand why you wouldn't get a 4K at that point.
Yeah, at this point, if your TV goes bad, it's worth your while to just go ahead and get a 4K TV. Now, we're not necessarily talking about the 4K OLEDs.
No, you don't have to go crazy with it.
But just a good 4K LED is way more reasonably priced than it was when 4K launched. When 4K launched, you were looking at $4,000, $5,000 for kind of a moderate setup. And just over the span of 3 years or so, I mean, we've seen it come down very drastically.
Well, and, the most official source, as we know, the most accurate statistics on the world are Twitter polls. But I can't remember who whose profile this was under. It might have been Greg Miller's. It might have been one of the other guys from IGN. But they were talking. They put up a Twitter poll that basically asked, "Do you have a 4K TV or not?" And I might be remembering this wrong, and I apologize if I am, but I could have sworn the amount that said that they have one, or I think the first thing was, do you have one, or do you plan to in the very near future? And that was like 40%. And there's several thousand votes on there, and that could just be that small sample size. But I think if most people walked into a Best Buy or a Target or something, or got on Amazon and actually started looking at what 4K TVs actually cost, I think most people would be genuinely surprised. They build it up in their head like it's this big new technology, and with some of the OLEDs and some of the other stuff, it is. But if you bargain shop, if you find the right deals, if you find, say, right around now or when a lot of the 2017 models are coming out, some of that switchovers happen. But you find some 2016 TVs that are on clearance, still new in box. Sometimes you can get as much as 30-40% off.
And there's something to be said about open box TVs too. I can't speak for other stores, but I know that at Best Buy, a lot of open box TVs get returned just because it didn't fit where the customer wanted it to fit. It didn't have some random feature that they wanted it to have. Things like that. I would say size not fitting where they expect it to is usually like the number one thing.
Yeah, people don't measure accurately, and really quick. Pro tip, we both used to work at Best Buy for a pretty extended period of time. Stores don't like open items sitting around. They want to move those. And so sometimes the price is not as firm as you think it is on open items. But
be realistic, because if it doesn't have the remote and you're wanting another $500 off, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Definitely be reasonable. Go into it with an idea of what you know of what you've seen at other stores, what it costs, and kind of go down from there. But you're right. A lot of times they want to get rid of that. That's considered undesirable to have in your stores because it takes away from the look and feel. And at the end of the day, they also treat their open boxes with the same warranty coverage as a new in-box item.
That's what I was going to say. Warranty coverage is the same. Return policy is the same. Now, I can't speak for every outlet, but Best Buy specifically, it's all you're not getting is the box. And unless there's a blatant reason why the TV is returned, like maybe, there's a giant scratch in like the upper corner that might be on like the black lining, but not necessarily on the panel. Occasionally you'll get stuff like that. 9 times out of 10, like Terrell said, just the TV didn't fit where they wanted it to do. And I know we've gotten a little bit off track, but
the point is the 4K is very reasonable now. Especially if you get it during transition periods, during maybe it goes on sale for a deal of the day. Ad sales a lot of times now are very good, and open box items are something that people undervalue a lot, and you can really get a good deal with an open box.
Yeah. So if your TV breaks, make sure to shop around, make sure to look for deals, and I think you will be very surprised with what you can find. But that's, when they talk about 4K adoption over, who needs this for, the 4K content, because people don't have 4K TVs. Well, I would argue that a lot more people have 4K TVs than you think have them. And I would also argue that the switchover is going to happen much quicker than, say, the 480p to the 1080p days. The transition from standard def to the initial HD took a fair bit of time. The transition into 4K is going to go a lot faster.
Well, and we've already seen. I think part of that is they're still going. When they say that not a lot of people have 4K, they're still in that last year mindset. But just over the last year, it's really come down. It's really gotten more popular. Other companies have started perfecting a little bit more and tweaking it to the consumers. Not everybody needs a high-end soundbar built into the TV.
Yep.
So they've started making those adjustments and making them much more affordable. So I think people are still kind of in that last year mindset. And within the next year, you're going to see a huge explosion of 4K TVs in people's houses.
Now, one of the biggest, bullet points on the 1X that I see brought up, we've discussed a lot. We've discussed, price. We've discussed, people kind of building their assumptions on price before the system comes out. I think more than anything else, though, what I hear is, well, if it doesn't have games, then, why do I need it anyway?
Yeah, you got to remember that it's not all about exclusives. Exclusives are great, and we got a little spoiled with Xbox exclusives back in the early days, with all the Halos and things like that. But at the end of the day, most of the big AAA titles are multi-platform, and you're really not losing a whole lot. Yeah, every once in a while you get your one big title for that year that's exclusive to PlayStation. To be fair, Xbox hasn't had a lot of AAA exclusives, but
they have not.
You don't need them.
They have not, and you don't need them. I would like them. I'm not. Keep in mind, I'm not going to argue if next year at E3 Phil Spencer comes up and announces some mind-blowing AAA first-party exclusive. I'm not going to be sad about that. I'm going to be really happy. However, if you look, I don't know about you, but if I look back on the games that I've played recently, I've been playing a lot of Rainbow Six. I've been playing a lot of Overwatch. I've been playing a lot of Destiny. I've been playing a lot of, I just recently gotten back into Grand Theft Auto 5. All those games are multi-platform. And I think probably 80 to 90% of what I play, if not higher, is multi-platform.
Yeah, I mean, when you really look at it, like you have The Last of Us. Okay, that's nice, but you play it through once, maybe twice.
I play through, and keep in mind, before you write us off as Microsoft fanboys or this or that, I've owned every Sony system. I have a PS4 currently. I have played all of their major exclusives for the most part. We'll get into some of that later. And like you were saying, The Last of Us is one of the best single-player games I have ever played in my life. And I think it's a game that everybody should play through if they're a serious gamer. That being said, I have never once had the desire to replay it. I've tried. I've restarted the game, gotten 30 minutes, gotten an hour in, I think one time a couple hours. And I just don't want to play it anymore. Same thing for the Uncharted's. I've played all of them, and they're some of the best action-adventure games I've ever seen. The stories are amazing. The characters and the way they interact, the interactions between Drake and Sully and stuff are just second to none. They're truly in a league of their own. But I've never once had a desire to replay any of them, period.
And replayability is a big deal. It is a really big deal because, I mean, like you said, I could spend days playing a good Call of Duty or a good Battlefield, something of that nature. But on a good story quest, especially if you blaze through it, you spend
15 hours.
Yeah,
maybe
10, 20 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of them are closer to 10 hours, 15 to 18 for a few. I know what some people are going to say, what about Neo, which I haven't played, but, I've played some of the Devil May Cry games and that Castlevania that came out on the 360. I don't think I want to play another game like that. If I can find it cheap, $20, $30, I might give it a try. The other big one is Persona 5. And I'll admit the game looks interesting, and I can understand why some people would like it. I can understand where the appeal is. It's not there for me. I have no desire to dump 100+ hours into a JRPG. I can't get into that world. I just can't.
And to be fair, a lot of what makes Xbox really nice for the multi-platform games is their social space. Xbox Live has always been very solid. It doesn't get hacked. You don't lose your credit card information.
I've never had credit card information stored in plain text. I've always been helped if I've had an issue with Xbox Live and stuff. Again, reliability is a big one. Xbox Live does not go down nearly as often or for as long a periods. In my opinion, Xbox Live has never been down for months at a time. And when a lot of the major Lizard Squad cyber attacks were going on, both parties were affected. And there were a couple of days where for 12 or 14 hours, Xbox Live was down. But I think maybe 20 hours was the most I'd ever seen it actually down for. And every time one of those hits would happen, maybe my memory's wrong, but I remember Xbox Live being up faster than PlayStation. And I had both. And so I was trying to get on games on both. And my Xbox was always ready quicker. It was always ready to go.
Well, and some people say, well, Sony's was free, but I mean, that's what you get when you have a free service versus a paid service.
And starting with PS4, that whole argument went away. They started charging for it too. And to their credit, PSN did get much, much better. I like PSN a whole lot better on the PS4. They've made a ton of amazing changes to it. It is a night and day difference compared to PS3. I'll put that out there. But Xbox Live was amazing from the beginning, and it just keeps getting better.
Well, and the other thing, too, is on Xbox Live, you're much more likely to interact with players that have headsets on.
I've run into that.
And it's been better with PlayStation 4, I think, a little bit, but
it's less of an issue.
It's always been
in the 360 days since those shipped with headsets, you would almost never get into lobbies where almost everyone didn't have a mic. When I would get on my PS3, it was a miracle if I could find a teammate who was talking. Because, they had that $60, $80 Bluetooth headset. I think it took them a while to come out with just like a basic $20, $30 headset. And that was in the infancy of, the Turtle Beach phenomenon. And I think we take that all for granted now. Most people have some sort of gaming headset. But back then, that wasn't the case. Everybody didn't have $200-$300 gaming headsets. And for the most part, you couldn't even buy them.
And I think that's translated a little bit now with the current gen, too, where Xbox players were so used to playing with headsets that even the PlayStation players that have them a lot of times don't think to put it on because it isn't ingrained in how they play.
Yeah. And getting a little bit back to the games, the first party and third party, I'm of the belief that honestly there's enough out that you should probably own every system. Even the Switch, Zelda alone is worth having a Switch for. I don't regret a single dollar spent on that system. And it was so much, I took a risk, but it was so much better than I ever thought it could be.
It's what the Wii U should have been.
Yes.
Honestly.
And with the PlayStation 4, you can find one used or find one on sale for a really good price. And a lot of the exclusives are old enough that you can just clean house on games for not a lot of money and beat those. And I use my PlayStation as an exclusive machine. But if Xbox One X comes out, and I know this is going to vary title by title, game by game, depending on what the developer decides to do. But if there's 20, 30% better performance between visuals, between frame rate, between lighting effects, texture effects, whatever's going on in the game, if there's a substantial increase on every third-party game, I will take that. I will take, rather than having 10%, have some big AAA exclusives that I'll play through once and never touch again, I'll take 90% of my library getting an upgrade. And that's worth the price right there.
Absolutely.
For me. And again, everybody's got to make their own judgment call. If you don't see the value in it for you, it's totally acceptable. It's your money, do with it what you want. But I guess in the future with consoles, I hope we see a little bit better communication. I hope we see communication closer to actual launch dates.
Yes. And
the one thing I will ding the One X for a fair bit is it really needed to come out like a month before it is.
Because it's starting to come out right when the games hit, a lot of the bigger fall titles.
Yes.
And if the money crunch is real, it would have been nice to have a little bit of recovery time between the console coming out and the big games coming out.
There'll have been 2 or 3 games that come out since then, and we'll talk about the games later, but Shadow of War is one of them that's supposed to be really optimized and have a lot of enhanced visuals on the One X. It's one of the games that they keep pushing for it. It comes out a month before, and I'll probably buy the game day one, and I probably won't play it until the One X comes out, because I don't want to get 20, 30 hours into a game and then reload it and then
the experience changes.
And if the experience is drastically better, then I'm like, man, why did I should have just played the whole game on here.
Wish I could have seen that opening cinematic or gone through that first sequence or whatever.
And
Yeah,
I know,
so
and I know,
get you.
first world problems here. First world problems, but the Call of Duty World War II comes out 4 days before the One X, if I remember correctly. It's November 3rd. The One X is November 7th. I'm going to be playing that game for 4 days, and then I'm going to go buy. I'm actually going to replace both of my Xboxes with One X's, just because I want the same experience on both. But then I'm going to have to load all of that up again.
Yeah, and we're
on new
talking
systems. I think
huge data.
I think
it's going to take hours to sit there.
I think COD World War II, I think they showed was like 70 gigs, 72 gigs. I think Destiny 2 is around that size. I forget what the game was, but there was a game coming out that I think was 100 gigs. And it's just insane to me. I'm going to have to, spend a weekend just getting my games on there. Now, on one of my consoles, I have an external drive, and they've since come out and said that's just plug and go. So everything on one of my Xboxes, on my older one, is on that drive. And so on one of the systems, I guess everything's good to go. But still just loading that down on one. And I'm fortunate in that I don't have, our ISP here started offering unlimited data plans. So
yes.
I don't have to worry about hitting a data cap. You start having to re-download 400 gig titles.
Yeah, that's going to be a big problem for people's data caps. That for the places that don't have unlimited data, you'll wipe it out in that one download unless you're buying the disc. And I mean, discs, they can be nice, but especially when you sit there and want to switch between titles, it is such a hassle to get out and shuffle through your disc and put the right one in there.
Yeah, I've gone almost entirely digital. I think the last physical game I bought was Overwatch, and I hadn't played too much of the beta, and I wasn't sure of the longevity. I was concerned. I was like, man, am I going to play this game for 2 weeks and then just hate it? And so I ended up doing the disc. I have sunk probably hundreds of hours in that game at this point, so I probably should have gone digital. And if it ever does go really cheap on digital, I've done this before. I'll just buy the game digitally and then trade in the disc. Just so I have that digital license so I don't have to worry. But again, out of all the games that I play, so many of them are third party. I really think that a 20-30% increase, and maybe on some games it's less. On some games, maybe the differences are almost non-existent. We don't know. And I know, Digital Foundry did their reviews. They looked at Anthem and saw that it was doing, checkerboard rendering for I think the entire demo. And it's a while before that game comes out. Maybe by the time it comes out, it's native 4K on there. This game still looked gorgeous, and I don't think anyone can deny that. But at the end of the day, maybe I'm irresponsible with my money, but I like having the latest and greatest. I want to play on consoles. I don't want to play all my games on PC. But I also want to have the best console experience I can. And so that's why I'm going to go for it. And, every time consoles come out, you always see Best Buy, Amazon, Target, GameStop run some minimum trade-in deal. Minimum $100 for any Xbox, or minimum $150 any Xbox. And I almost forgot this whole point. Sparked it there. I forget which Xbox executive said, but when they were talking about why pre-orders weren't up, he used the phrase, I believe we have something fun and exciting coming up for Xbox One X pre-orders.
Which could be anything. There's a lot of speculation, but
it could just be PR speak, and it could be just trying to put a really positive spin on stuff. I found it to be just a really interesting phrase. Interesting is the best way I'd like to say, because what is fun and exciting about a pre-order? I'm trying to give them some money to make sure that I have my console. Maybe Microsoft's working with vendors, in collaboration to have one of those minimum trade-in deals. Maybe it'll be something where you can send it directly to Microsoft. Who knows? But if it's $150 trade-in for some of those systems, what? $350, maybe $400 to upgrade to that, to get 4K Blu-ray, to get, the 12 gigs of RAM, to get the better CPU, to get it, vapor chamber, liquid cooled, and to have that brand new system. To me, that's that's a no-brainer.
So to wrap up, I think basically the idea is that people are overreacting about this price. Sure, it's not going to be for everybody, but there's a lot of value in it. You're getting really solid hardware, and let's face it, they're probably selling it at a somewhat substantial loss, to be honest.
Yes, and getting back to the console, everybody has to make their own value judgment, and if you don't want to spend that, that's totally fine. Phil Spencer be just as happy if you buy an Xbox One S. And I've seen, I think some of the deals now, they're as low as $200 with, I think, a game and a controller. I think it was Newegg had a deal on eBay.
When you consider that a game, $50 to $60, a controller is $60, that's not even talking about the console itself. I mean, if you don't think the $500 is worth it, it is worth the $200 or $250 to get the One S and still have a very good experience.
Yeah, and that'll get your 4K Blu-rays done right there for half the cost of a PS4 Pro.
And just slightly over the cost of just a 4K Blu-ray player.
Yeah, 4K Blu-ray players are still expensive, and even the best Blu-ray player on the market typically won't hold a candle to game consoles in terms of processing power. They're slower.
Especially when you try to do stuff like Netflix, Hulu, some of the streaming apps, they load so much faster on the consoles than they do on Blu-ray players and TVs directly.
But, you guys, make the decision for yourselves. If you want one, stand by. I'm sure in the next couple of weeks we'll have some pre-order information, hopefully. I'm lining up to try to give Microsoft money. But, I just in the future, tempering expectations, realizing Microsoft does not plan on selling 30 million of these. If that happened, I'm sure they'd be happy. So, in summary, you got to make the decision for yourself. Is it worth the money? Is it too big of a hit right now for you? But I would strongly recommend to kind of look at what it would take to build a PC like that. And you know what? If some people wait and see maybe Shadow of War, I know it's not going to run at 60 FPS, but maybe look at some of the Destiny stuff, look at some of the Call of Duty stuff. And once we physically get to see some of the differences in some of these third-party games, I think that could be a make or break point for some people. If people see almost no difference, then I might feel a little bit worse about my purchase, but I'm not going to regret it. But if you start seeing night and day differences where, you could show a person on the street, hey, which one of these screenshots is better? And they're pointing to the 1X photo every time. I think that's going to be the key to its success, is not AAA first party, 1X titles. It's, Assassin's Creed looks twice as good on our system. The third party games are the ones that sell insane amounts of copies.
And they've already talked about several that are going to be enhanced specifically for the 1X. Yeah. And I think that's going to make a big difference.
So, I'm excited, but all that's left now is to wait and see. So.
Well, Alex, thanks for coming by and talking about that.
No problem.
This is part one of a 3-part series. We're going to break it up a little bit. Alex, if they'd like to get a hold of you, how can they follow you?
Just follow me at Twitter at the Bodom Reaper. It's BODOM.
And I'm Terrell. You can follow me at ThaxCast. Thank you so much for dropping by today, and check out the other videos. If you liked it, if you liked what you heard, give us a thumbs up or give us a thumbs down. We'd love to hear the commentary. Let us know how we're doing. If you did like it, we'd love your subscription. And check back with us for videos 2 and 3 of the follow-up.